We are entering a renaissance of Universe's community events, and the biggest one yet might be the Stark Dark Open Series. This is a $2,500 cash tournament for the standard format, capped at 64 players, but there's also a Rochester Retro 1K side event. So Saturday and Sunday, June 21st and 22nd, down in Jacksonville, Florida at Counterspell Games, there's going to be two massive Universes events. I'm super excited to see it. I wish I could make it there myself, but if you guys want to check it out, there's going to be more information in the description below with the event link. It's going to have all the information you need, but $2,500 cash prize pool for the main event and a 1K side event. Man, this is huge. I hope to see both events fill out. I hope to see a ton of people there, and I'm really excited to see that these community events are really taking off. So thank you to Counterspell Games for hosting this, and thank you to Stark Dark.
Power creep. It's a part of every card game. It's an undeniable truth in card games, it seems, but it's also highly subjective. So I want to talk a little bit about power creep and just specifically the last year or so. I've been a little worried about the numbers on character cards because if we go back to like Godzilla and the first Attack on Titan set, character cards had a lot of health, right? And there wasn't too much of a reason for it other than, I mean, Connie Springer has 32. I can't think of a reason. I just can't. You know, if you told me, well, the Colossus Titan is really big and hard to kill, like, sure. He's got 35 health because he's big and hard to kill. But the point is that, characters with defensive abilities have extra health. Characters who don't look like they have defensive abilities but actually do have defensive abilities have 32 health. Characters that have 28 health but probably should have had more health than average humans probably deserve it. Like, I don't know, Levi just looks like such a solid character, and yet he's seemingly unplayable. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's because 1-1 is not good enough anymore, or if because looping an attack just doesn't warrant the 28 health. But for a while here, we even saw defensive seven-handers with life gain with 23 health. Tutoring blocks and life gain, 23 health, right? So it was kind of scary for a while there because we were seeing so many characters with extra health, extra hard to kill, and it feels like there was a decent amount of power creep around this time to help kill them, right? So like 723 doesn't matter that much if the one attack that Godzilla gets through is for 14, you know? If everything Godzilla is sending for 9, then the difference between 20 and 23 is nothing, essentially. You know, one partial block and two normal hits still kills you, right? So it was kind of like a weird math to do, and it was something I was afraid of because power creep is very hard to come back from. And that's my main fear. That's the main reason I'm making this video, is because I've seen so many card games that struggle and they turn to power creep and they don't last much longer. And granted, there's nothing that we can really say about the future of UFS, or I guess it had still rebranded to Universes. Back in 2020, they had, you know, Jason Horonsky had already announced, My Hero, and made plans for it. I don't know how much he alone had plans for like the reboot and doing like My Hero only and stuff like that. But if you look at the trend from Cowboy Bebop to Soul Calibur, Libra of Souls, it looks very similar to a lot of card games I've played where after, 5 or 6 years, which granted, I think it was like 10 years that Jason had the license, but I think, they had like 5 or 6 years worth of printing sets. After like 5 or 6 years, games start to struggle and they turn to power creep to kind of push sales, to force sales, to make sure that new cards, are necessary and things like that. And it's never really been a recipe for success. I've never seen a game turn the power creep dial up and A, come back from it, or B, survive it. So uh, it's been kind of a roller coaster ride with the last year because around the same time, we had some Challenger decks and we had some Tekken characters. Now, most of the Tekken characters haven't really appeared or made a huge splash, but Devil Jin, of course, has. Um, and he always was going to be the one that does because he says you pass one of your checks and he puts a bucket load of damage on things. But also, he has kind of the appropriate level of stats. Martial Law does have damage reduction, so 719 might make sense. But Ymir and Sasha have life gain and have 23 health and, higher number reduction, at least on Ymir. So it's been kind of interesting. There's a Martial Law deck profile hopefully coming out. I had some technical issues with Brett Hellman, but hopefully we're going to get that formatted. But either way, Martial Law is like where I want, I think, a power level to be because, you can turn a bunch of your cards sideways and like all your -2 speed, all your E commit for -2 speeds are now E commit for -3. And that's like that's like the taboo barrier, right? That's like the barrier where you need a condition for your foundation to commit for -3. And if you fit that condition, it's -4 now. You're like almost Rodan. I can't say that was straight, but you're almost Rodan levels. Anything that you have that reduces damage that you commit for minus damage, right, is now one greater. So there is a lot of wiggle room there, and 719 would seem fair in a world where Texas Smash is maybe the biggest attack, and like only Texas Smash and the card after it are the ones that are going to deal like half your health total, right? But we're in a world where they're kind of all dealing half of Martial Law's health total because he only has 19. Ling Xiaoyu has barely a defensive ability. Clear 2 cards from your card pool and draw a card is achievable on both turns, but being a 720 in between all the other products that came out looked pretty rough. Jun Kazama kind of missed her window, it feels, with looping referee jury was struggling with studies. Boy, do you have to play a lot of damage reduction to risk doing her game plan, and even then, like the tempo of cards is at a place where stuffing the card pool by 1 rarely matters. Very rarely, but it does matter. So that is to say, between the 2 Attack on Titan sets, we've got a 6-hander with 34 health, who also does a Ghidorah, who also has like a Ghidorah head. We've got characters with, 31 and 32, so it started to come down a little bit. Started to drop a little bit with Attack on Titan 2, but not a whole lot. And I mean, Attack on Titan 2 also had Bertholdt 2, which distracted a lot of people from the discourse, right? Bertholdt 2 was the big boogeyman from that set. But I mean, even Card Titan here has a 633 with a defensive ability to perfect block, right? So tutoring blocks, gaining health, DRing, all really powerful defensive abilities, and it's being afforded to characters with extra health. So if you looked at like a Godzilla, if you looked at like Bertholdt 1, and you were like, well, they have extra health because they don't have any defensive ability. Even Smiling Titan can ready on your opponent's attack. I could maybe see the argument for it. But like Hanji Zoe 4 Eyes has, 1 extra health. Like 721 is like the new baseline, I guess. But is it actually like 45 health when you play the character? Maybe it's only like 38 now that Immortal Shapeshifter is banned, but still, And some of the starter deck cards, or not starter decks, I guess challenger decks, whatever. They've got like 630s and 721s, and these feel right. A lot of these feel right. And so I was afraid for a while there that Attack on Titan 3 was going to kind of continue the trend and give us like defensive characters with bonus health and give us, 634s. I wouldn't have been surprised if we had another 635 in it. Or like, I'm waiting for like something super crazy where it's like a 6-hand size, 40 health character, like Bearded Titan turned up to maximum, and it's just like you have no ability. Which I guess Bearded Titan kind of already tried to do at 635, but we had another 635 with great abilities in that set. So You know, like if you had like 5 hand size 50 health and it's like, oh, you just gotta slog through it, you know, that wouldn't have surprised me that much. But I'm focused only on one number, and that's the health of the characters because there's so much that you can discuss as far as power creep. There's so many things you can evaluate incorrectly as far as text and, you know, speed and damage numbers go and check bonuses and all that. But the point of this video is to say that I'm happy to see that so far the health totals seem to be normalizing. You know, 5 handers are getting a little extra health, especially if they don't have like a DR ability on face. And 6 handers are coming back down a bit. We're still at like 30, 31, but we're also seeing some more 29s, which is cool. Um, and I think that that's making Critical Role look a little more normal. You know, it's making the Critical Role cards look not so far behind. And I'm happy with that. I'm very happy to see that it's trending back downward because if this set, if Attack on Titan 3 and, you know, especially subsequent sets had continued with the ridiculous like health value numbers, I shouldn't say ridiculous, I'm just saying like, you know, higher, inflated. I think it'd be really hard to come back from that. I think it'd be really difficult. I think even still in the next year, as these characters trend back downward, I think Berthold Hoover and Reiner 1, you know, Berthold 1 and Reiner 1 stay very relevant because they're 6 handers with a ton of health. You know, their abilities aren't the most exciting or easy to use, and that's balanced, I suppose, by the fact that they get all this extra health. So um it's still crazy to me that Terry and Darrington has like the best abilities in Critical Role, like the best defensive ability for sure, the best speed hate outside of maybe Rodan in the entire game, and he's the guy with extra health. That blows my mind. Sorry, I'm just scrolling by and saw that he's the 631 from the set, and he also blocks the best. Absolutely nuts. Also, why you probably saw him more in Top Cuts than anyone else. Can I say it's strictly the 31 health? No, that'd be stupid. But it is a weird coincidence, isn't it? But so, what do you guys think? I guess is how I'm going to end this video. Do you think that we're going to come back from this power creep? Do you think Berthold 1 will stay relevant if people decide to play him just based on his 35 health? You know, I've got people going back to Smiling Titan and Reiner, you know, post the Radas, and they're doing all right, at least in, you know, a locals level. Well, that was a pretty sweaty Ace Arena. I don't know if I'd say locals level, but you know, it was only 4 rounds, so I guess that's what I mean by locals level. But I don't know. I'm glad that we're not getting 634s anymore. I'm glad we're not getting 635s. I'm glad we're not getting 634s with -2 damage and sacrifice a foundation on your own turn. That was ridiculous. Um, and I'm glad to see that the game isn't like fire selling all of the, you know, overcooked abilities, pumped up power creep abilities, like I've seen a lot of games do about this mark in their lifetime, especially if they're not, you know, breaking into the top 5 card games or you know, threatening the big 3. This is usually about where card games panic, right? So I don't know. The trend is coming back down. If I had made this video like 2 months ago, or like especially before Critical Role, I would have been like freaking out because Berthold 2 would have been a thing, and you know, high health characters would be here to stay. And what are we gonna do with characters like Hanji Zoe, who just lives forever for no reason with no cards in hand? And that's still kind of true about Hanji, I guess. She'll have her day. She'll have her day on trial. Yeah, what do you guys think? Do you like that we're trending back down? What do you think the average health of a 6 hander should be? I thought 28 was pretty good. If we bump it up to 29, I think that's okay. 29s and 30s, but I think above 30 is too much. I don't know. Let me know down in the comments below. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.